Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I'll hand it over to you, Michael.
Thank you. Oh, here we go. It's a good start, isn't it? Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm afraid I've got man flu, like half of the SMT at the minute. Yeah, the finance update paper that everybody's received. I wasn't going to go through it in detail, but I just wanted to give you an update on a couple of the items. Firstly, on our position with the Homes England grant for the bungalows at Osmaston, that's progressing nicely at the minute. The grant agreement has been signed off by Derby Homes. I think, Bob, you did that. And it's currently with the council for their signing, and then it will go through to the Homes England for final sign off. But the figures are in line with what we'd anticipated, so we're really really positive about that development happening this calendar year. The second one is just to give you an update on where we are with our appointment of new external auditors. You'll see that the recommendation is to continue from the audit committee to delegate the authority for the appointment of new auditors to myself in conjunction with the chair of the audit committee, Ian, and to recommend to the board the appointment of an external auditor. We're currently in discussions with various potential auditors, and I'm hopeful that we can get a positive update through certainly in April time. And what we'll obviously do is update the board outside of the meeting on that particular process. So yeah, happy to take any queries on the paper at all.
Any questions? Lucy?
Yeah, and that's really helpful. I just wanted a bit of background, Michael, as to get my head around this new agreement that the government is expecting on the right to have shared ownership. Is that something that would also apply to the council if we were using them as the funding stream, as the ownership stream? And if so, how does the shared ownership work alongside the right to buy?
Okay. Well, obviously for the grants that are going to go through Derby Homes, the right to shared ownership will apply on
and
those.
Not the other.
Yeah, and not right to buy. When we did the analysis of right to shared ownership, we don't think it's going to be particularly financially attractive to tenants of Derby Homes. So we don't anticipate many applications. Of course, the properties would be subject to right to acquire as well. As regards the council, I'll be honest, I don't know if the right to shared ownership on the Homes England grant also applies on the council properties, but obviously those properties would still be eligible for right to buy if they meet the standard right to buy classification, i.e. they're not supported housing. But again, Derby isn't really a city that is that attractive to shared ownership funding. I can find out how it impacts on the council side and provide an update.
Okay. I think that would be helpful just for sort of background information.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any further questions? Otherwise, can we approve, as Michael said, the delegation of the appointment of auditors?
Yeah, I think Charlene's got a hand up.
Yeah,
Oh.
Charlene, Chair.
Oh, sorry, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Sorry. Just a quick question on the auditors. I think it's really positive that we finally got some people speaking to us. And I was just wondering, without going into too many specifics, because I know you're going to report back to us, but how many companies roughly have we been able to engage with, and just to kind of feel for what that conversation has been like, I guess, because I know through the tender process it was really tough for everyone.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go into that level of detail in a public meeting. I'm quite happy to have discussions outside of the meeting on where we are with the various auditor options. Obviously, negotiations are ongoing at the minute, and I won't want to prejudice those discussions by discussing how many people we're speaking to, etc. You're quite correct. We did undertake a tender exercise, and that wasn't successful. So we're now directly approaching bidders, and engagement has started. So that is a big plus. There's no question that the sector is having difficulty in capacity of auditors, and finding somebody to fit us in for this financial year it is a challenge.
Thank you so much.
Okay. With that, bearing in mind that comment, can we approve that the recommendation? Okay, right. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll now let you go and okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hope
Bye.
you start to feel better.
All right, cheers. Thanks.
If we go back to the main agenda now, I don't think there are any late items. Declarations of interest. I've just got one personal update. Louise, if you could just make a note of this, that as from midnight tonight, I will no longer be chair of the board, the governing body at Leesbrook School, nor will I be a member of that governing body. So that can be removed from my declarations of interest. Moving on then to the minutes of the January meeting, if we can go through them as usual. First of all, for correctness, on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14. Jen, you've got your hand up.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, could I make a comment regarding some of the content on page 9 very quickly?
Page 9, yes, sorry,
yeah.
yes.
So it's the Health and Safety Forum content. I apologise if I wasn't at the meeting, but the bit that kind of jumped out at me was the latter part of the long paragraph where it's described as around those people who are wanting to engage and those who are not. Derby Homes is ensuring that the right balance of continuing to offer to support all opportunities, at the same time making sure there is a system for those who will not cooperate and they're in the space of criminality. The language there suggests that sometimes engaging is a choice and it's not always, and I think it's really important that we kind of unpick that a little bit, because at my first read it kind of gave the impression that everybody who was not engaging as we might want them to was making a choice not to do so, and that isn't always the case. I also think that where we're kind of associating those who will not cooperate, okay, and I speak from the experience of somebody who was very ill with their mental health last December and who would be seen in the context as that as not cooperating with professionals, but I didn't have a choice in the matter. I was too ill and the environment that I was being placed in was triggering me to be unable to cooperate, but it was not a choice. And I certainly wasn't criminal in my actions. And I just think that that wording is really important, because the language that we use can filter down into an organisation and really lead attitudes towards people who might be demonstrating vexatious or antisocial behaviour. There are always going to be people who are intentionally criminal or deliberately difficult, but there are lots and lots of reasons, particularly in the homeless population or those who are sleeping rough or at risk of it, why they might be seen to be not engaging, but where then they're not choosing to, or even things that we are doing, the systems and the environment are actually causing that behaviour. And I just think that's just so important.
Okay, I've got Lucy and Ian.
Yeah, may I just support what Jen said? And the angle I'll come from is from some casework I've done where somebody was unable to attend what they were expected to attend because of not wanting to lose a job. And when you're a vulnerable, on the edge of society person, you know that your job is really important. And if you're also told that you've got to be doing a course or attending something at the same time, you may think that your job is more important than the other item. And I think we need to be mindful of that when we judge people.
Okay. Ian?
Chair, I think perhaps some of what's been said may be out of context, in the sense that I think what has been referred to in the wording there is that there are a number of occasions. I chair the Health and Safety Forum, for those who don't know. So the instances of violence and aggression, for example, at Milestone House, are brought to the Health and Safety Forum. We have numerous instances of members of staff's safety being threatened, people being threatened verbally and in other ways, frankly, our staff put up with a great deal at Milestone House, and are very tolerant of the way some of the clients behave, and sometimes that spills into a manner which the police have to be called and people have to be arrested and people have to be moved on because they're a threat to other people. So I think the wording there is referring to where there is criminal intent by certain parties who don't do this once but do this on a regular basis, and do it against particular members of our staff at Milestone House. So I'm just saying I would be careful about watering things down too much, Chair, because I don't think perhaps what's being referred to is what was intended in that wording. I think some of our staff certainly perceive they are in danger and are threatened on a very regular basis by people who've been in jail often and who say to staff, "I'll get you when I'll come out." Yep. And I don't think our staff should have to tolerate things like that. And it's perfectly appropriate that when things like that happen, that law enforcement is brought in and the appropriate things are done. I think we have to be careful to protect our staff and while being very mindful of the problems that those who may be threatening their staff have in their own personal lives and own personalities. But the Health and Safety Forum is about our staff and protecting our staff, the health and safety of our staff. And that is the primary, one of the primary purposes of the Health and Safety Forum, to ensure our staff are safe and that we are looking after our staff as a board and as a management and as an organisation. So I think that has to be at the forefront of our consideration of how things are said and how things are worded, Chair. Well, being mindful that there are people with challenging situations in their own lives, and believe me, from what I am aware of, at Milestone House, for example, the staff there bend over backwards to be very considerate and very mindful of the people they're dealing with on an ongoing basis.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Claire.
Thanks, Chair. Jen, just to give you some reassurance, because I think the update that was given through the Health and Safety Forum did very much focus on the support around the Milestone staff, but I think in terms of, and therefore wouldn't have been considering issues of capacity of those that were conducting the relevant behaviours. Just to give you assurance, we are really sensitive as a service to issues of capacity and cooperation, and clearly any action that we would take into account capacity, in any decisions around any enforcement actions, as would the police.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Jen, is your hand still up, or do you want to come back?
Yeah, I would like to come back. I just want to say to Ian and Claire, I kind of appreciate exactly what you're saying, particularly Ian in the role of the Health and Safety Forum. Might I be able to reflect on some personal experience regarding to this? And I am happy to share this. So I was actually admitted, Maria knows about this, but I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital at the beginning of December last year. And at that time, the decision to admit me was not appropriate, and it was made by staff at a very high level in the organisation. That's absolutely fine, Maria. I'm absolutely fine talking about this. And during my 2-week stay there, I barricaded myself in a room, and I was verbally aggressive to staff and threatened them, and I also self-harmed as well by banging my head against a thing. And the only reason I feel so that it's not so much the context of the meeting, but the language that we're using is what I didn't have any choice in that situation. And although I behaved in exactly the ways, you know, I threatened staff, Ian, but it wasn't something that I was doing deliberately. Not everybody is in that situation, and I actually apologised, and it certainly wasn't the fault of the staff that I was dealing with. From a basis with the support workers, it was because of decisions higher up the tree. And it's just this, that the language that we are using is I'm not talking about the context of the meeting. Staff is really important, but when we talk about people making choices, people don't make choices all the time. That's all I'm saying. And I wasn't given a choice. I was put in a situation where I was describing in exactly the ways that Ian is raising as threatening staff and making people potentially feel unsafe. And it's just so important, because everybody on this board knows me and knows that I am not a violent, aggressive person, but we all have a point at which we can't tolerate anymore. And yeah, it's, as I said, it's just the language, the way we've described people making choices. I just think it's really important that we're careful with how we represent, how we perceive vulnerable people as a board.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us, Jen. I appreciate that can't have been easy, but I think the points you've made have been noted. Ian, is your hand still up, or did you want to come back?
Well, my hand, I'm actually finding difficult controlling the hand, in the sense that I'm struggling to get it on sometimes, and I was actually struggling to get it off as well. But could I just say, just by way of explanation, Chair, we had on our agenda at the Health and Safety Forum this afternoon members of staff who would be cases where members of staff have been threatened with Stanley knives and screwdrivers, and that has to be dealt with. We cannot have that. It's not just a matter of saying sort of let's pass by. When somebody has a Stanley knife in their hand or a screwdriver in their hand and they're threatening someone of our staff, as an organisation, we must take appropriate action. And while being mindful of the person involved in their history and their issues, we have to be mindful of our staff. And the heading of this item, Chair, in the agenda is Health and Safety Forum. And this is what was discussed at the Health and Safety Forum. I don't think it should be taken out of context. As Claire mentioned, that there is a wider context that may have had different ones in this, but this was dealing with issues which arose at the Health and Safety Forum. And that's the sort of items that they're reading about, Stanley knives and screwdrivers against our members of staff. And we have to deal with that as an organisation and take appropriate action for our staff.
Okay, right. Thank you. We've taken a matter arising rather than just for correctness, but that doesn't matter. We've discussed an important item. Can I take this as a true record? Sorry, Maria,
yeah, I just wanted to try and wrap this discussion up, and I think what would be really helpful, Chair, is if I can ask Claire at a future meeting to bring a report forward that talks more holistically about the multi-agency work that we're involved in to support some of the more chaotic and vulnerable people that we deal with in this service area. And I think Jen will be able to offer us lots of valuable advice on that work, because it is a subject that Claire's actually working very closely with Councillor Webb on. to ensure that the right services are engaged, because you're right, Jen, it is about protecting our staff, but it's also about supporting vulnerable people as well. So I think we'd be more than happy to bring a report forward to show the depth of work in this area.
Okay, right. Thank you. Jen's response shows that she's very much in agreement with that. Thank you. Okay, if we could go back to any, sorry, if we can approve these as a true record, first of all. Yes, and then go back to any matters arising on page 1. I've got one at the top of page 2, item 2204, the NFA conference in April. We've booked places and there were places for 3 board members. So far, there's only myself and Jan who've indicated that we wish or are able to go. So there's still a place booked, and I've just pushed it as being always a very interesting conference and well worth attending if people can find the time to go and attend that conference. Please let Louise or Maria know as soon as possible, please.
Mike, as you know, I'm a party animal and usually love attending these functions, but sadly on this occasion there are issues out of my control within the family mix, and I've got to make sure that I'm around in case something happens.
Yes, but we'd be noted your regret at not being able to come this time.
Believe you me, it's a regret.
Yes, but if any other board members wish to go, and Jen would like to go as well, but she's on holiday. Okay. But if anybody else wishes to spend a day in Birmingham, then please let Louise know. Carrying on then through there, if any other matters arising on page 2 or page 3, page 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 or 14. Right, everything else I hope will be picked up at various points during on the agenda. Item 6, announcements from the chair. I have 2. One is that earlier this week the government have now published some update on the social housing paper, and part of it is they are setting up, let me get the correct terminology on here. Yes, they've now opened applications for their social housing quality resident panel, and seeing as we've got 3 very high quality residents present with us today, I would like to bring it to people's attention. If anybody wishes to apply for that quality resident panel, then there is an application form which can be found on gov.uk, but I think we can circulate the link round if to anybody if you may be interested. Okay, Maria says she's pushing it around all our quality tenants.
Right, that's fine. Yeah, because I say I want stuff. Now I'd like to have a look at it if I could, but yeah.
Okay, right. The other announcement is as if nobody disagrees with this, for a number of reasons, we'd like to move the date of the AGM back 1 week. Instead of being on the end of September, to move it to the 6th of October.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, right. If anybody has any issues with that, if you just let us know, but give people as much notice as possible on that. Okay, moving on there. Statements from members of the board? No, I don't think we've had any questions. So moving on then to item 9, committee chairs feedback. Ian, Audit Committee.
Thank you, Chair. The Audit Committee met on the 7th of March. The committee considered a number of items, including the Strategic and Operational Risk Registers 2022-23, which are on your agenda this evening, and after questions and discussions, notice the revised details. The committee considered a report by the Interim Finance Director outlining the progress of commissioning an external auditor, and agreed to delegate the authority to the Interim Finance Director in consultation with myself to recommend to the board the appointment of an external auditor in due course. And the committee also requested that it be kept updated on progress on that. The committee had a report on internal audit progress. The committee, during discussion of this, again raised that a number of Derby Homes deadline dates have passed without adequate response, and noted that this is an issue which the committee has raised on numerous occasions. And after discussion, the committee recorded that it would like information to be included in future reports regarding what has actually been implemented to date, where the actions themselves have not been fully completed. I think it's fair to say the committee was expressing dissatisfaction, Chair, that we quite often get dates which are long past and that there's no indication as to what Derby Homes has done. And I think there's slight irritation about that, which we'd like to see resolved. Committee also considered the internal audit plan for 2022-23 and considered that and accepted the proposed plan. The committee considered the report on the annual reporting of Derby Homes bad debt write-offs. Committee considered that report and after discussion noted the bad debts write-offs. The committee had a report on van audits in 2020-21 and 2021-22. The committee noted the report outlining the differences in stock levels identified as part of the routine van stock audits, and noted that there needs to be management oversight on this area of activity. Right. I think there's a feeling, Chair, that sort of some members of staff take this seriously and other members of staff don't take it as seriously, and perhaps management should be sort of having more oversight on that. Now, there was another item on the agenda, Chair, but I'm going to mention that in the confidential section of the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Any questions to Ian? No. Okay. Move on then to Bob, Operational Board, 10th of March. Muted, Bob.
Yeah, one of the things that we'd been talking about at previous meetings was the stats and statistics that CAS brings, and they're really, really useful. But I sat down with Lorraine and says, let's have a workaround so we don't have to have so much obvious information. People are supposed to read the minutes anyway. So we decided what we'd do was look at the exception reports so we could concentrate where there was exceptions. And I have to say that went down well at the meeting. All the operational board members agreed to it, and we discussed it afterwards, and they thought that was a positive move forward, and it gave a bit more time to discuss operational board statistics rather than, you know, as pages and pages. Now, hopefully the main board would support me on that one. Tony Holm brought up a query on EPC ratings and said, you know, how can we find out as tenants what our EPC ratings are, and are they good or bad or indifferent? So Derby Homes has agreed to establish a way of providing this information to tenants in the future. And there was a charging points came up again, to plan to install charging points for existing properties. I mean, I think it's all been explained, you know, it depends on the property. New properties will probably have them, but as Sean pointed out, I think it was Sean, that not all properties are suitable to have points. And where are you going to put them and that? So, but it was raised, obviously, Lucy, on a going forward scale, it was raised and it was discussed. And the council is going to talk to us about going forward. Grounds maintenance, I'm pleased to say it was discussed, and I can confirm they have been round. And I believe there's been some recruitment correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows differently. Since I did this, I spoke to Richard Holman the other day, and he says that it's starting off to be a good year. Let's hope it goes forward. And I've certainly had mine cut, and I know of another area in the town, so it's looking good. Although today's weather's not exactly good to cutting the grass, but at least it started off. Looked at performance management. Yeah, we agreed about the operation board. And it's important that somebody raised about just Derby Homes address complaints. Well, Derby Homes do address complaints where it's practical to do so. I mean, I know it's not always possible, and being on the Ombudsman panel, they sometimes get it wrong as well, because there was a case recently where they were sending back recommendations and actions back to the complaints team, which, to be quite honest with you, didn't even resemble the complaint. And some of you may know about it. It involved paving slabs, and there was no paving slabs there. And the answer they gave back to Annabelle was not even to do with it, and it wasn't even practical. So I don't know how Annabelle has any update on that. And I did raise it last week, but it fell on deaf ears, shall we say? And I'll be gentle.
Okay.
I think most of the other stuff, Youth Alliance grant, we dealt with. Voice legible standards. I have to say we've got some good news on that. I've been out and about around the business, as you probably know, and we've got a big thumbs up today because now we ensure that we provide 2 keys to tenants when they move into a property for windows and doors. And that's been a result of the lettable standard. And I think the rest is just what I would term routine, and it's on the website. Okay. Anyway. If anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happy to take it.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions or comments to Bob?
That's good. I never asked you, Sean, if you wanted to ask anything. Add anything?
No. Okay, thank you, Sean. Okay, at this point I'm going to have to plead my incompetence. For some reason or other, I don't have any notice about outstanding actions or the urgent action. Is there anything to report? I think the outstanding actions have been covered.
I think so.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. If we can then move on to part A, and before I go on to there, I've been informed that Michael's not the only person suffering from man flu. Sean is also finding it a bit difficult there. So if Maria agrees, can we take Sean's property update first?
Is there footy on telly?
I do agree, Mike, but Sean's also going to do the health and safety update.
And health and safety as well.
If he does both of those, that's fine.
If we do A4 and A5, A4 and A6 before the rest. Okay, pass it over to you, Sean.
I can confirm there is no football on tonight. He really is not well.
In that case, it gets my sympathy.
No, I didn't even go and call the bingo last night at the social club. I let my ladies down, so I'm going to be in trouble for that as well.
You're always in trouble, Sean.
Well, voice would probably be a good one for calling bingo at the moment, to be fair. But yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks very much for the understanding there. So property update, it starts with the usual detail contained within the attachment, and did make sure the team, had a really good look through, making sure that everything was brought up to date. And on that spreadsheet, there's over 20 sites of detail there that are each working their way through the process. And when you add up the number of homes from those sites, it's over 190. So there's a lot of new homes to be delivered through the work that's being put in through that scheme there. I did, however, notice, just as I'm totting the numbers up, notice one error that I'm going to admit to. We're not building 64 bungalows at Grange Avenue. It will only be 32, so they've doubled up there for some reason.
You spoiled my fun.
I'm sorry, Bob. That's the one thing that I picked up that I just noticed there. I would also say to the board, that this is the list of sites that Derby Homes Development team are dealing with now. We have regular meetings with our colleagues over at the City Council in the Housing Strategy team, and they've got an equally impressive list of sites that they're also working on. So we do make sure that we see the full picture in terms of both sets, and work into a position where hopefully I can share the full set of information with you in terms of everything that's been delivered through the HRA or through Derby Homes. But there's work going off across both sides to try and do all we can. Now, the next section in my report under 4.21 and the table just under 4.2.2, just stress a little more detail about some of the work that we're putting into engaging the scale and pace of delivery. and I asked my head of capital work just to provide me with a summary of some of the most imminent work streams that is looking to engage external contractors on, because we've reached a point now where our internal resources for new build are now fully occupied across 4 sites that we're currently working our way through at the moment. But there's some larger, more complex sites that we've agreed a while ago that we'd bring in external contractors for. So we've been busy finalising a lot of the detail that contractors need to be able to give us a price, and we're looking to engage contractors through a consortium. Efficiency North have a really neat new build consortium that contains some really useful regional contractors that we're looking to try and engage for this work. And the tables there just give you a bit more detail in terms of what we're doing across each phase there for Barlow Street and the blocks of flats at Crompton, Oaklands and Patterson. And then, of course, work stream 2. It's 37 bungalows. It's correct on this one, so there is a mismatch there. So Grange Avenue, 37 bungalows there, and the work that we're doing there, hopefully to see that scheme through to planning permission being granted. It's currently in the system, and there's a lot of detailed information being transferred between us and the planning teams of various other departments to bring that scheme through. Of course, that's going to be our first net zero scheme, and there's a whole range of other environmental issues, not least biodiversity, that we're working on at the moment in terms of making sure there's no net loss to that. So there's still some challenging conversations that we're having, but that's part of the course for the planning process. To be fair, those conversations are always being held in the background there. And then work stream 3 is one where we're looking at rebuilding the bungalows at Bretton Avenue for those that want to have their bungalows rebuilt, and refurbishing the ones that may be refurbished. And we're looking to, again, bring on a main contractor early in the process for us to tap into their expertise in terms of the solutions that might be able to be applied there, so we can have a full, frank and honest discussion with the local community about the options that are truly available for making that happen. So that concludes my update on new build. Have we got any questions on that before I move on to my next item?
I've got something later on, Sean.
Okay, Bob, no worries, cool. Okay, so on 4.3, this is something that you'll know I'm very excited about, and I've been talking to you over the last couple of meetings about the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund bid that was submitted towards the back end of last year, and we've been eagerly awaiting the outcome of that. And at the what would it be, about a month ago or so, we received confirmation that we'd been successful. Now, we submitted our bid through a consortia, through Midlands Energy Hub, and I think that was absolutely the right thing to do in terms of ensuring its success. Every bid that was submitted through that consortia was supported. It's the largest consortia bid in the country from a support point of view, and that means that we can press on and externally insulate the cast iron properties around the Allington part of the city. So anyone who drives down Harvey Road and is stuck at the traffic lights at the Spider Bridge, looks left or right, you see those rather bland, plain-looking properties. They were built in 1927, probably the very first form of modern method construction in the country. Cast iron panels, they're here, still standing, still structurally fine, but we want to make them more comfortable to live in. And this is going to enable us to apply that much needed external insulation. What I'm also looking to do with this project is not just randomly apply any sort of insulation. I want to be really careful that we get the design right, and that the colours and the textures of the finish that we use are going to maximise the impact on that community. I'm hoping it's going to transform the look and feel of that community. And we're also looking to tackle other issues like the windows, ventilation, and other issues around biodiversity as well. We're looking to incorporate swift boxes into the render system, and we've got an away day planned with the local community around the end of April, where we're looking to engage them in that sort of process as well. But we're also looking at that workshop to provide some really good basic energy efficiency advice to people as well, not just those that are benefiting from this work, but we're also inviting owner occupiers along to that session, as we are those that are going to be on future phases of this work, hopefully as well, are going to be invited along to that event. And that kicks into an item that I'm going to talk about next, which is cost of living. But I'm really pleased that we've got this fund, and it takes our total funding achieved across the city to over 6 million in the last 18 months in terms of investment in energy efficiency in housing. And that's across both sectors. So that's a combination of the various strands of Green Homes Grant that we've managed to achieve, the Social Housing Decarb Fund now, plus the ERDF funding that we're looking to spend on the flats at Knightsbridge in Mackworth, and that'll help us, complete the work to all those non-traditional flats in that part of the city. So we are really starting to see us work through those 500 or so homes that have got a band C or less, over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. And as I mentioned in the report, hope to achieve that target that's been set by government for 2030, maybe 5 years ahead of that. So I'm hoping that we'll deliver the every property to a band C, you know, by 2025 at the very latest. If I've got enough capacity to do my next 2 phases of work on the cast irons in 1 year, then I'll be whacking them all in for a bid next year. It all depends on me having the confidence that I can deliver within the time frame that we agree for the funding, though, because the last thing I want to do is let the government down in terms of being able to deliver on what we promise. So that's the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund update and some of the work that we're doing around that area. If everyone's okay, that brings me nicely onto something that you'll have all been hearing about a lot in the news over the last couple of weeks. And I wrote this report a couple of weeks ago, and I've been worried about the cost of living crisis for a number of months now, in terms of spotting what's going off across not just the increase in the price cap, but also the increase that we can start to see coming through now in the wholesale cost of gas and the impact that that has on lots of other issues. You know, we're all tuned into that. I don't need to teach you how to suck eggs there. You know, you've been listening to what's been going off on the news. So there's some facts and figures there in terms of the impact that it's going to have on our customers and our staff, and it is devastating. You know, it's going to double costs overnight. Certainly by next winter, when it really starts to kick in, those costs are going to be doubled, and people just aren't going to be able to make ends meet. I heard a really interesting fact when we did a staff briefing last week from a colleague in Derby Advice, where someone who receives the basic rate of universal credit now, believe it or not, is in fuel poverty just based on the standing charges alone. Before they've bought a single kilowatt of gas or electric, already those standing charges have already eaten up 10% of their income, which would put them in fuel poverty. It really is shocking. So what can we do? And I've got a few ideas, if you flip over to the next page, of the things that we are trying to do. So of course you'll have heard me, you know, for months and years now banging on about doing all we can to make the stock as efficient as we possibly can. Now the impact that has for our customers is a positive one, because if we'd not done that energy efficiency work, the situation would have been far worse than it even is now. So when we talk about the price cap being around about £1,200 for an average size home, when I scan down the average heating and hot water cost for homes that we manage with an average SAP score of 75, EP SAP score of 75, then I see more figures around the 800 mark per year. So, you know, we're already at about 2/3 on average the cost of what an average home would be to heat, but this still means that there's a significant impact in terms of the increase, even from the £800 up to what's going to be the new amount for those individuals to have to pay. So we don't want to hold up on any of that work, and we want to carry on investing in energy efficiency. We're also upping the number of visits that we carry out to offer advice to individual customers, and we're also holding advice surgeries and coffee mornings at common rooms and other locations, and also looking to engage with local schools and do talks at assemblies, you know, so the children can pass those messages home. I wish my kids had been on one of those though, because the other day one of the lads come down and filled the kettle right to the brim just for one cup of tea. Yep. So it's already started getting through in my home, and the doors are always open as well. But there we go. We're also wanting to carry on installing the photovoltaic panels when we re-roof properties. That project's going really strong now. They look great, and they're going to save a significant amount of money. You know, one of the downsides about energy increasing, well, sorry, one of the plus sides is that you save more on your solar panels, because every kilowatt of energy that they produce now by October will be worth double what it is now. So that massively reduces the payback for that sort of investment. So we absolutely need to press on with that. We're also looking to engage with all tenants that have previously refused energy efficiency work and ask them again, you know, as we often do, but please, in the context of increasing fuel bills, you now might want to change your mind, but seriously, it's going to save you a considerable amount of money. So we'll be writing to everyone to do that. We're also, as you know, committed to new homes in the future being to net zero standard, where energy costs are going to be so much lower than the ones that we see, you know, spouted around on the TV. And we also discussed this issue at the Decarbonisation Staff Forum that Lucy attended a couple of weeks ago, and came up with some ideas there about making sure that we do our best to get advice and information out and accessible on a range of different platforms to our customers that we promote. I mean, it's crazy to think that we've got to do this, promoting the use of common rooms as a warm place for people to go and sit during the day if they can't afford to heat their homes, promoting downsizing for people that are under occupying larger family homes. That might be just a trigger now that those heating costs, you know, are going to tip them into, you know, thinking about doing that. So that might free up some family homes. So there there is a slight positive to that. And we're also working in partnership with Derby Property Commission and Derby City Council to raise awareness and try and point people in the right direction for financial help and support. And at the bottom of that page, there's a few schemes there that we've been referring people to. And I'll just mention that on the Household Support Fund that was due to close today, but is going to continue with the support that's provided in the spring statement. In Derby, we've done fantastically well and made over 1,000 referrals and managed to hand out £175,000 just through the Household Support Fund. So we've already generated some great momentum, and we want to carry on doing that to do all we can to support people that are going to be finding it really tough. And it's just not brilliant, is it? It's just, you know, we just got to do all we can, and any ideas, any thoughts that anyone's got, you know, then whiz them through to us and we'll think about that. We've even been thinking about, you know, should we be buying slow cookers to hand out? Should we be thinking about, you know, the electrically heated throws and stuff like that? Anything that we can do just to try and help. But yeah, it's a tough one. Shall I leave it at that before I go on to compliance?
Yeah.
You're on mute, Mike.
Thank you, Sean. So I've got Bob, Jen, and then Rachel.
Sean, it's interesting to see your paragraph there. We plan to write to all tenants that previously refused heating upgrades. What about those unique people like myself who I never refused it but never been offered it?
What heating upgrade?
You know, you're on about the panels. Is it the panels?
Yeah,
heating upgrades or energy efficiency improvement. I mean, when I moved in, next door's got the panels, but I haven't. And you know, I just wondered what the channel, you know, the solar panels and stuff like that.
Yeah, to be honest, at the moment, Bob, that's in context of some of the basic stuff that we do through the capital programme, like replacing heating or insulating homes. Yeah. And that's some of the basic measures that have been refused previously by tenants. I'll have to put a bit more work into what we can do to extend the solar panel scheme. And of course, as I've mentioned already, the payback period's got a lot less now. And it might be that in the future we choose to use some of our surplus maybe to invest more in solar panels where properties aren't being re-roofed, you know, to expand that initiative even further. So I take that as something to look at further, Bob.
Because, you know, you and I have spoken about this a few times, you know, and just out of interest, guys, I've just worked out percentage-wise my increase in bills, electricity and gas dual fuel bill, it's 61%. And I'm a very unlucky person. Everything that we use now that I pay for everything, so I don't even get any help with it. So it's a big increase, 61%.
It is, it's crazy, honestly.
Oh, okay. Jen.
Hi, yeah, I think I just wanted to echo some of Bob's comments about some more information regarding the expansion of the solar programme would be really good, because obviously 130 houses a year is brilliant, but it's going to take us 100 years to do our entire stock at that rate. I think the concern I have is that at the moment, if we're only at about 10% of our housing stock, then it's not, people wouldn't necessarily walk around a community and notice houses with solar panels on them. But as we increase that, there's going to be an awareness of, you know, well, my neighbour's got solar panels and I haven't. And actually, it might be seen to be quite I'm just trying to think, placing certain you know, there's going to come a point where not having solar panels is going to be seen to be quite placing a number of our tenants at a disadvantage, really.
Absolutely.
Particularly, if, you know, which again is going to reflect back on our kind of customer satisfaction again. So I just think that that's really important that we talk about the work that we're planning on doing, so that if people see certain houses having panels on, their kind of expectations are managed.
Yeah, it's a really good point that both you and Bob raised there in relation to panels. I think we've been focusing predominantly on and you'll hear this a lot, a fabric first approach to make sure that we're getting the insulation in there before we start looking at some of the renewable technologies. But we're ahead of a lot of organisations out there in that we're getting close to having completed that work, and we've also made some decent progress on solar PV, but I can see that we need to make more. In fact, we've had a survey carried out on the whole stock, and we can see that about 6,500 more homes can benefit from solar PV. So that's something that I'll bring more detail back on, you know, and this gives us a real push and an urgency to get on with that. You're absolutely right there.
An interesting point from that, Sean, would we try and, I'll use the word coerce those who don't want solar panels, would we try and persuade them that it's the way forward? Because future tenants may want it, and if it's not put on it part of this programme, then we could lose out, you know, the losing.
Yeah, I mean, the increase in fuel costs now, I know, should make it a no-brainer for most people desperately wanting them.
Absolutely.
Because you can save you so much money compared to how it was before. You know, now you're probably looking at 250, 300, maybe a year from now, £500 a year saving from solar PV.
And that negates the increase, doesn't it?
Which makes it worth doing when you're talking about £3,000 for a system. You know, it's a no-brainer. It's a 6-year payback on that basis.
I'm happy to have it done, Sean. Make a list.
It's a shame Michael's left the meeting.
Okay, right. Rachel.
Thanks, Mike. Just wanted to reinforce and to thank Sean and Derby Homes for the work we were doing as a partnership across the city on the cost of living crisis, because I mean it is extremely worrying, some of the impacts on all of our population, but particularly those in the more vulnerable categories. But it's really going to be quite extreme, and we've done some great work through the Poverty Commission, through the Partnership Board, Metropolitan Thames Valley, the DWP, the NHS, the police, everyone working together, and how we can really ease the contact and the accessibility of support and advice and information by doing it in a really seamless way, and to get the message across to the whole population about how you get access to some of that support as early as possible. But wanted to thank Derby Homes for being part of that. It's been really good for his work. And we have no illusions. We can't solve the problem, but we can make it as easy as possible, which is really the key thing.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. Lucy.
I want to come back to the PV panels, because one of my frustrations is that there are people in the community who know that this is something that we need to do. Now we've got a small set of panels on our house, and at one point this morning it was exporting 2 kilowatts, and that's 2 kilowatts that's going onto the grid that somebody else can use, which hasn't come from gas or whatever, a fossil fuel. And that means that is some gas that hasn't had to be imported into our country, that we're having to pay for potentially from Russia at the moment. So if we can get more PVs onto roofs, particularly if they don't actually have battery backups with them, it actually helps the whole of the community, because it reduces the costs of our electricity in Derby. And we're not getting the full benefit of this, and it's the sort of thing where if you've got a local energy club, that you can start getting that benefit to individuals. But I think we need to explore this more, and I think there are 2 strands. One is to be able to work out how we can get that within a community, and the second thing is how we can get the funding in to support rolling it out. There are lots of funds that are actually now looking for the renewable investment, but the opportunity needs to be put together in a way that will give a payback. But if you've got that investment opportunity with a payback alongside it, then there are pension funds and investment trusts and the like who want to put money into this sort of thing, because people know it's the future. So as well as saying, Sean, where can we do it? We also need to be saying to somebody, how can we fund it? How can we put together a business case for people to invest in PVs on the roofs of Derby Homes properties, knowing that about half that power will be used within the property and about half will be used onto the wider grid? Yeah. I don't know how to do that. Is it something that David or Michael will be able to help us with?
I'll talk to Michael. Sorry, Ian, just before you come in, if that's okay, just on this point, because I've had an idea where there's going to be lots of organisations out there looking to try and offset carbon, and they'll pay to offset carbon. So why not pay to offset carbon by installing solar panels to the roofs of council houses in Derby? That might be another that we could pursue.
Yeah, it's another angle. That's certainly another angle that we could work on if we've got a viable project and a genuine feedback. And to do offsetting within our community is much better than planting trees somewhere unknown which nobody's looking after.
Well said, Lucy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right. Thank you, Lucy. Ian.
My point was similar to Lucy's, Chair. I don't think there'll ever be a better time to talk about introducing solar panels than now. And I'm just wondering, is there a way that Derby Homes can compulsorily put solar panels on all roofs? Or could people sort of object to being on their roofers? what I'm unclear on is that in terms of if you live in a house, can you control what's on the roof of that house, or can Derby Homes control that? What is the legality of the situation? Because as Lucy just said, there is a greater community good at stake here. It's not just what a person in a house fancies doing or wants to do. We could enhance the whole of the energy sort of sector in Derby by doing this, and anybody trying to stop that being done would not be seen in a terribly good light. So I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity here where we could actually sort of go ahead with this, given the present circumstances. There will definitely never be a better time.
Yeah, there's absolutely a way we need to push this forward, Ian. I mean, I can't see take-up being an issue. Not a single person who's having their house re-roofed has objected to having the solar panels fitted. And now with the price of energy, it's even more compelling. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue for us. It's going to be a minute percentage, if anything. It's having that willingness to pull the business case together, make that investment, line up your contractors, get your frameworks all sorted and get on with it. As I say, we've already done the survey and we know that there's about 60,000 homes that could benefit from this. A lot of, you've got flats obviously on the ground floor that won't have a roof, and you've got to think imaginatively how you do that, and we've done quite a few of those. But yeah, we've got some good experience in this area. We just now need to stretch out, don't we?
Okay.
Chair, could I just come back on that? I mean, on flats where there are a number of tenants under that roof, Sean, is it only the tenant on the top floor who benefits from that roof, or is there a way where if there's a solar panel on that roof, all tenants under that roof can benefit from it?
It's not normally all tenancy, and when we fitted solar panels to the roofs of blocks of flats many years ago, and they've been producing energy for a number of years now, I've got a feeling that we decided that energy would be used on the ground floor flats because they were more tricky to let. So it held, a letting issue.
But is there a way where the power from solar energy could be shared among all?
There's a way you could do it. It would cost you a little more in terms of the number of inverters that you'd need and the electrical connections. You've got to be careful you're not diluting it to a point that what each tenant's getting isn't really viable. So it's striking that balance in, to be fair. Well, a lot of our blocks of flats have been done and have been producing this energy for a number of years now. They've saved millions over the years. We generate £1.3 million worth of feed-in tariff income each year in the HRA. At least that should be invested in more solar PV.
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking the point the point Jen raised earlier. You're going to, given the current rise in energy costs, you're going to get jealousy among tenants that somebody's benefiting from a solar. Quite rightly so. I mean, if I lived in a flat and someone was benefiting from the solar panel on the roof and I wasn't, I wouldn't be best pleased. And I think there's a sort of managing of the situation there, that if there was a way to spread the benefit among more people, then people would be on board more with us.
Yeah, cool. I'll bring back a business case for doing all 6,500 and we'll see how it looks, shall we?
Yeah, go for it. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad David's not still here for this meeting.
I think that would be such a positive customer engagement strategy.
I agree.
I mean, it would be so good just to say that we're going to do that. I think it would be a fantastic thing if we could bring it forward.
Yeah, it'd be a big statement. You know what? Our customers might even live with waiting an extra year for a kitchen for the investment that we can put into this. In terms of
absolutely, they would. Absolutely.
But going back to Ian's point about jealousy, I mean, I'm not saying I'm jealous, but when I arrived here and saw my neighbour with the panels and I hadn't got them, my first question was, how do I get them?
Yeah,
I won't tell you what Sean said, but and it's not jealousy. We just think, well, I'd love those. And getting back to your point, Ian, why wouldn't you want them?
It's frustrating that it was a one-off all those years ago, when the going were good on the feed-in tariffs, and then all of a sudden, the viability, didn't seem to work. But now I've seen this increase in energy costs. It brings it back into being viable and well worth doing. The saving now is absolutely worth investing in. Absolutely. I'm really into this, as you know.
I think they call it hindsight, Sean, don't they?
Yeah, I know. I expect to know, the days of gas are over.
Lucy, were you indicating?
Yeah, I am trying to indicate. And I know, Sean, I think you said want to reschedule our kitchens and use that facility, and I think you said it a bit tongue in cheek, but I actually think we should seriously consider that, because if you can't pay your bills, which would you prefer? A new kitchen or a slightly shabby kitchen for a bit longer and actually having something on your roof that's helping pay your bills? I know which I would want.
You know what? This is great timing, everyone, because I'm bringing the asset management strategy to our next meeting. So let me entwine something into that and see what our options and choices are, shall I? Before I do too much in a meeting that's been publicly broadcast out there in terms of making any commitment on life cycles.
Yeah, it's just something to look into.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, Jen.
Yeah, just very quickly. Another thing that might be easy to do is checking the efficacy of windows in tenants' houses, because quite often you don't need to replace the whole unit. I'm guessing you can just redo the seal around doors. Things that might be worth offering is reflective packs for behind radiators on external walls. The only other thing I was just thinking of, and there's a colleague of mine at the moment who is working on energy, the energy performance capabilities of housing stock across Nottingham, and he's got some really interesting ideas, and he might be happy to come and talk to the board about how you could prioritise and optimise your workflow, because he's looking at things like what work can you do first that has the biggest impact. Would there be any interest for me putting him in touch with you, Sean?
Oh, absolutely, Jen. I'm always keen on speaking to people, you know, that share this passion for this subject, and you always exchange a few ideas between you that will be really helpful. Yeah, so absolutely, that'd be great, Jen. Thank you for that.
Okay. Right, Ian.
Just one further thing occurs to me on this. There may be people who presently are benefiting from solar panels and are getting a modest amount annually from it. But with the increase in energy costs, that amount will greatly increase.
Yeah.
And there may actually be a situation where if someone was getting, just let's say, if someone was getting £10 from a panel, that panel might now be producing £100 worth of benefit. And you could actually share, if it was a flat, you could actually share, all the flats could share in that benefit, and the person who was getting the £10 would still get the £10 or more than £10. So they wouldn't actually be losing out, but everyone else would be able to join in without someone actually losing out. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a good one, Ian. It's an alternative way of trying to share the benefit out, isn't it? Yeah, I'd have to think that through in terms of, you know, because it just knocks it off the bill of the person that's actually receiving it. And
they wouldn't be getting less. They would be getting what they've always got, but other people could get the same.
Yeah. I mean, there's an argument here, guys, you know, that, you know, your rent setting process, you know, could arguably, you know, factor this in as well, and that might be another way of alternatively sharing it out as well, and they're conversations that we could have. So yeah, there's a whole range of different mechanisms that we can use. But yeah, this is a great debate, and thanks for your support for this stuff. You know, this is what I've been looking for a while now. Fantastic.
It's good to talk. Okay.
Excellent. Right. Can I move on to my final item now, Chair? Is that okay? Just
yes, thank you.
It's equally as important as anything that we've discussed already is compliance, and it's a report on the top 6. And at the last meeting, I was asked to give you an indicator of the number of homes that were out of their service date, and I did gas and electric. I think I was asked for gas. That gives you an idea of how far out they are. And when I saw the figures come through from gas safety, I was really, really impressed. I noticed that out of the 15 that are over a year, we've actually only got 3 that are between 4 and 5 months, and none that are beyond that date. So they're all within a period that we feel are acceptable in terms of trying to still gain access before we have to go to any sort of court action. So the team seem to be doing a fantastic job of avoiding having to go down that tougher route by making sure they're getting, because that's what we really want to do. When I saw the figures come through on electrical safety, I wasn't quite so impressed. Although electrical safety is best practice, not statutory, but still something that we feel is really important. But I was encouraged by a conversation that I had with the contract manager that he's put some real effort into tackling those that are over 12 months old and those that are over 6 months old. And is seeing some real progress made now. And he's guaranteed me that the performance will be similar to that on gas within a number of months. So it's put some real effort into that, and it's come up with some interesting solutions that is applying with local teams across the board now to tackle that. So I'm not overly worried by it. We're still happy that those properties are safe. We're still going through our process of trying to gain access, but it'd be tough for me to gain access through court when it's a best practice item and not a statutory one. But I want to not have to rely on that. I want to get as good at getting in on electric as we are at gas, and the two teams work together anyway. So that was the comment that I wanted to make on that. The rest of it's where we expect it to be 100% in terms of where we need to be from lifts, asbestos, water, and fire. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just on that point, Sean, of course, I think most board members may well be aware that the latest thing from the government says that there will be statutory guidance on electrical testing coming out very shortly.
Yeah, great. That's good. That's just what we need. It should be. It should be. You know, statutory and not best practice. Important stuff. Keeping tenants safe. I'm with you on that.
Safety at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bob. I've got Jeanne and then Bob.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Sean. I raised it the last meeting and was really interested to see the figures. I am reassured by what you said, but I still would like I presume you must have some sort of process that each of these go through over a certain amount of time. So sort of like the ones within the first month go through some sort of process, and that it kind of gets sort of as time goes on, it gets further down the process. I would like to see that process come into the board so that we've got an understanding about what things are actually happening with each of the cases, rather than identify them individually, but just so we can see the process with that.
No problem. I can bring that next meeting, Jan, if that's okay then.
I do have some concerns. The gas ones, I kind of like with you. The three that are at 4 to 5 months, I would just like to be making sure that things are happening with those. But the electric stuff, I was concerned about the ones over with 6 over 12 months, and I think we do need to be seeing what is happening with those. You know, that even though it's currently is only a best practice stuff, and even though we know that we are kind of like can show that we are meeting what we should be doing, that doesn't negate the fact that if something happened at one of those, it's about Derby Home's reputation and things as well. We wouldn't want a tenant to be in that situation anyway, so just to have some of that reassurance and kind of to see the process.
Absolutely. I'll continue to report this detail at future meetings so you can see that progress being made on numbers, but also bring that standard procedure back as well, Jan, and just include that in the body armor report next time around.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, Bob.
My concern is basically around the issue of gas safety checks. And you said today, was it 5 months, 4 months, 5 months? And, you know, it's sad that we get to that stage. Tenants won't let us in, or leaseholders, whichever is tenants usually. And I know I've witnessed in my travels operatives knocking on doors and not getting answers, and I've watched the person come out half an hour later. I know you can't legislate against that, but is there nothing more we can do? I'm really worried it would get to months before anybody can access the property. And I know you're doing your best. I really appreciate that.
It's frustrating. I mean, I took out a little bit of the personal detail that the lads did provide me on this in terms of some of the reasons, for obvious reasons, to be fair. But everyone has its own story in some ways, Bob. And, you know, I mean, you know, some of the stuff that Jen mentioned earlier today as well, you know, you got to kind of understand that you got to do the best you can.
But it's safety, isn't it? It's gas safety.
It is safety, yeah. And we do ultimately get there. We will take that final sanction if we need to. But we use all the tactics that we can to try and avoid that. And I'm pretty pleased that out of the 15, there's actually only 2, 3, 5 that are even over 3 months and none over 5. So, yeah, it is still frustrating. You know, we'd love to get into every property the first time we knock on the door, you know, but that's not always possible.
But that's not a dig at the teams, because I spoke to Chris and Hayden the other day, and it's no reflection on the teams. I know they're doing their best.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Okay.
Yep.
Definitely done.
Okay, right. Thank you very much for that, Sean. That's sparked a very useful debate about things. We move on to your next bit then, health and safety, A6.
Yeah, no problem, Chair. We had a really good health and safety forum meeting this afternoon where we talked through the accident and incident reports and the violence and aggression reports. We're really pleased to see a reduction in the number of violence and aggression incidents at Milestone House. That is an area that we focus on, you know, some detail at every meeting. We're also really pleased to hear that there seems to be a really good relationship developing with the local police force now and staff at Milestone House in terms of both working with each other to keep each other safe. So that was a real positive from today. Yeah, it was a good session. We've still got the ongoing issue with smelling one of the loos over at the mill, but it's a process of elimination probably, and that's probably the best thing to say about that, isn't it? Without going into too much detail, bearing in mind this meeting's out there. Yeah, so we focus on health and safety. It's a serious matter, but we still have time to, you know, tackle things, you know, with a light heart where we can, don't we? I'm saying this to my chair of the Health and Safety Forum here, and I think that means everyone engages as well, you know, creates the right environment for that. We also talked about COVID-19 and the current measures and the current state of play, and the fact that we're still making sure that people are being kept safe and that we've still got risk assessments in place, and that we're taking a review of that in April. And we also heard some fantastic news that you can see on page 42. Yeah. And that's that we have, drum roll please, been awarded our ROSPA award for the 16th. It says 14 in the report, but it's actually 16. And that's not my error. 16 years worth of ROSPA gold. And that gets us something called an Order of Distinction. Now, we don't normally attach the application for it, but it's been attached to the paperwork today just to give you an idea of some of the details we work our way through. And today, you know, we thank the work of all teams, all individuals and everyone that's worked so damn hard over the last 18 months or so under tough conditions to, you know, to keep the organisation, our staff and our customers safe over that period of time, you know, from risk assessments to masks to some of our operatives, you know, inventing their own little sinks in the vans to wash their hands and stuff. You know, it's been an amazing effort by everyone to still deliver a service, keep everyone safe, and carry on with the momentum that we've built over the course of the last 15 years. So it's great to hear that, and a big thank you to Ian as well for sharing the health and safety forum and the inspiration that he gives the team, you know, to carry on doing this. End of drum roll.
Right, okay, thank you, Sean, and congratulations, I think, for everybody concerning that order of distinction. Was that the phrase?
Order of distinction, yeah. That's
Yes.
Yeah. And it was interesting to see the paperwork. Now, you know, as a board member, you now know all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes to get that stage. It's not an easy task, is it?
No. Ian, do you want to add anything?
No, I just that I think Sean did an excellent summary. But I think what I think is important that board members realise is not just in terms of the Order of Distinction and getting all those year after year health and safety gold awards. Derby Homes all round is a very, very good, top-notch organisation.
Absolutely.
And it's important that as board members we do appreciate that we've got excellent staff working away day in, day out, doing things not only well but in a sort of very well, sort of as good as anybody nationally, and better than most. And I think it's important that sort of we take time occasionally to sort of recognise that we are a very, very good organisation who takes very good care of its staff and is very caring about its staff in the nicest possible way. And I think that reflects very well on the senior management of the organisation.
Excellent, thanks Ian.
Okay, Lucy.
You're on
muted,
mute,
Lucy.
I'll echo what Ian was saying, but I was wanting to pick up the COVID situation, and I was going to do this under the risk elements, but Sean, you're not going to be there probably for then, so I want to pick it up now because I'm concerned that, you know, from now when people can't go out and get any free tests, we won't know whether people reliably are going to be transmitting or not, whether that bit of a sore throat is actually COVID or whether it's just a bit of a sore throat. And I'm concerned what the implications are going to be for that. And I suppose in a way, it might be a message to Rachel to say, you know, is there any advice coming from public health as to how we within Derby Homes, but also within the whole of Derby, can actually manage this situation? The figures this morning was suggesting that there are more people with COVID in Derby than there have ever been. Yes, the outcomes aren't as bad, but we've still got loads of vulnerable people who are ending up in hospital. And that's bad for our NHS as well. So what can we be doing when we can't test, or we can't test very often? How are we going to manage it?
I mean, I don't have the answer to that question. We have been grappling with it. I know that Robin and the team are looking at everything they can do. However, you know, clearly national policies, national, you know, approaches around free testing, all of those things have been immeasurably important to this day, and our ability to do that without some of that national support is very difficult. There is still testing available for, you know, care homes and key vulnerable people, and we're trying to maximise the use that we can of those testing kits in those places. But I know Robin is looking at all of these issues, so I'm sure, as always, and through the last 2 years, we will share any of that information with Derby Homes for both staff and for tenants as well.
Can I just ask on that when we've got staff who are going to visit somebody who is vulnerable and who would have been somebody who was isolating, do we have a system by which we can check that the people who are visiting are have been tested, or do we not have that sort of thing?
We don't have that information, Lucy, because individuals don't have, there's no requirement to share vaccination status. But what we have done is taken the step where all of our staff, when they are visiting customers, will always wear a face covering. Irrespective of whether it's a legal requirement, that is a request that we've made of our staff, because I think it's the right and the respectful thing to do when you're entering someone's home and they may well be a vulnerable person. So that's the stance that we've taken in Derby Homes.
Bob. You're muted, Bob, as well.
I may not be able to get an answer to this one, but do we know roughly the percentage-wise of Derby Home staff who have actually been vaccinated and protected? You may not be able to answer that one. I'm just curious.
Again, Bob, no, we don't know, because no individual is required to declare their vaccination status. The only time that we did approach staff was when it was a legal requirement for all staff working in care homes. Yeah. So we had to approach our colleagues on the trades team in that respect. But as a general rule of thumb, we're not able to ask our staff.
And I was flipping that on its side when I was asked that question. I was thinking about the staff being protected from customers, if that makes sense. You know, if they've been vaccinated.
I keep pushing the message,
because you know that's an equally important thing.
I'm a broken record, I think.
It's a two-way thing,
staff
Maria.
must be a little tired of me pushing the importance of vaccinations with them in all of our staff updates, which go out fortnightly. Because I do agree with you, it's the best way of protecting yourself and others around you. But it's a personal choice, isn't it?
Yeah. But I must say, on the back of that, all the operatives that I've seen out and about around here, they've all been wearing masks when they went into properties.
Thank goodness for that.
I think they know where I live.
Well, okay. Lucy, is your hand still up from previously? Right. Okay, thank you. Okay. Again, thanks for that, and congratulations again to everybody about the Order of Distinction. But thank you, Sean, and we'll now let you go and take things easy and try and get better.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, Sean.
Okay, right. Cheers. If we can go back to the agenda again, then to A2, Maria.
Thank you, Chair. Never have I before delivered my report at nearly 20 to 8 in the evening, but there we go. First for everything. I'm going to keep it brief.
Right.
There's an update there for you on the consumer standards. The only update I've got further than a report is that we have today received the document list from Savills, which we are already working on. And I shall look forward to bringing you reports as we move through that process, which I understand is going to be a 10 to 12 week process. So I feel that we're getting a very, very thorough piece of work from Savills that will only serve to benefit us all. Some really interesting update on some government proposals to make changes within the building safety bill. You all know that the bill's going through the House of Lords at the moment. And interestingly, this week, the proposal has gone forward to remove the requirement for the role of building manager.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that may not come as good news to some local authorities who've appointed building managers. But in Derby's case, where we only have one block falling into the over 11 metre category, I did argue very hard that I didn't feel it was a cost-effective way of ensuring compliance. So for Derby, this is a very welcome piece of news. It doesn't remove any of the obligations, though, to carry out all of the requirements. And the council will still need to appoint an accountable person, and Derby Homes will be required to provide the evidence and assurance to the council. As with everything, that we're now used to this phrase, further guidance will follow. I also understand that within the proposals that are going through, we are expecting a consultation on proposed changes to electrical safety in the public sector, and that is expected to land with us April, May time. So we'll keep an eye out from that. I'm expecting it to bring the public sector requirements in line with the private sector, which of course is the good practice level that we are currently following anyway. So we'll update you on that as it comes through. Now, a topic we've touched on quite a few times tonight, the good old housing ombudsman. They really are quite a busy little unit at the moment. Yeah. But this one this was a perler when it landed in our inboxes on the 15th of March, presenting us with some revisions to the complaints handling code and telling us that these were in force on the 1st of April. I nearly had a dicky fit and thought, well, this is ridiculous. We've got 2 weeks. Luckily, when I read it a little bit further, it did say they were giving landlords until October to fully implement. Now, I've had a scan read of it. I agree with most of what I've read. There's going to be a mandatory definition for complaint, which I personally think is a good thing. Reassuringly, it's very close to the definition we've already adopted anyway. Officers are, well, a key change, as they put in the report, is we will have to self-assess annually. And I see that as being an annual report to the operational board. Yeah. And we'll get that on the timetable so that we don't face a complaint handling failure order, because it would be a bit of an own goal, really, wouldn't it? Officers are attending webinars. There's one tomorrow, and our team is on that webinar. My initial thoughts are we perhaps will have to make some changes to the way we currently handle MP and councillor inquiries, because the new code brings those into the same process as our complaints handling procedure. But again, we've got very, very good records and monitoring on councillor and MP inquiries, so it's not going to present us with a huge issue. One thing that has become apparent to us today is that the revisions require all landlords to have a complaints champion. And I feel that that already actually sits within the portfolio that Bob holds for us.
Fancy
under
that.
customer first. So as long as you're happy with that, Bob, myself and the team think that you are absolutely best placed for that to be added to your portfolio.
Should I be complimented or think not again?
Of course you should be complimented.
But no, I take it on board, Mary, and I think it's, you know, I usually know I sit on the Ombudsman's Tenant Advisory Panel anyway, so it's just a subdivision. I've got no problems with that. And they were also saying as well, which is interesting, they're going to have a greater use of mystery shoppers. And they're going to employ some mystery shoppers that can also be aggressive as friendly. So I wonder which list I will fall into. I'll leave it with you.
No comment, Bob, no comment. I'm not going to go through the cost of living crisis because Sean stole all my thunder on that one. But needless to say, there is some really, really positive work going on across members of the wider Team Derby. And it's certainly a privilege to be involved and work with them on it. Yeah. And that is the end of my report, Chair, if there's any questions.
Well, thank you, Maria, and thank you, Bob, for volunteering, shall I say, to take on that.
Is that the
role.
word? But Maria, just to digress, Maria, isn't this a role we had a few years ago, complaints champion? I used to work with Annabelle. I still meet with Annabelle now, so it's just an extension of what we do.
I think it's formalising the role that you already hold for us, Bob.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Right. Lucy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm coming back to the cost of living, and it's something which maybe Claire can reflect on as well when we get to her report, because as Sean mentioned, we were talking about whether the cost of heating is going to make people think about downsizing, but it might also make people think about consolidating households, so that people who have been casual partners might think that actually this is the moment to become more formal partners and live in the same house.
Yeah.
We might have those sorts of relationship changes, and I'm just thinking about how we can ensure that when that's happening, people actually don't lose some sort of tenancy security, because it would actually benefit us and housing. But whether there's something within our tenancy agreements that we need to be aware of if that sort of thing is happening, and it might even enable us to facilitate it in situations where it works for the individuals, but they might not have made that decision without a little bit of a nudge.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point there, Lucy, and these are all things that we're going to have to think about. We've got to think really imaginatively about helping people to live in a way that they can afford to stay warm and look after their families. I'm not going to pretend that we've got the answers right now. We are at a really early stage at the moment. We're concentrating on ensuring that we get the information out to people of the help that is available to maximise claims on support where it's available. This isn't going to be a 5 minutes piece of work. This is going to be a long and hard journey, no moving away from it. I do think that we're going to be finding ourselves promoting the home release scheme, which has existed for years and helps people to downsize. And I do feel that as an organisation, Derby Homes and the council will want to look for all the ways to make it possible for people to actually survive going forward. But I think these are all things that we'll answer as we go through this journey, Lucy, rather than things that I've got the answers to at the moment.
No, I didn't expect you to have answers now, but I just wanted to hope that I was just hoping that it was on the agenda and would be something that could be looked at, so that we're not so that we've got an answer when the situation arises, and I think it might start arising in the next 6 months.
And I think on the back of that, you're going to get tenants who wish to downsize now, who wouldn't downsize before.
Yeah. But we know
Absolutely.
about that one. Yeah.
Right. Any
To
further
answer
questions?
your question, Jen, I've put it in the chat.
Okay. Right. Any further questions to Maria? Okay. Thanks,
Nope.
Maria. Move on to A5 then, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. So there's a couple of things in my report this time, one for noting and one requesting approval. The first one for noting is the Rough Sleeping Initiative 5 bid that we submitted on behalf of the council following council approvals on the 25th of February. Really pleasing that this bid opportunity this time is a 3-year bid opportunity, and we've been lobbying along with, I think, local authorities up and down the country for some time to move to a longer term bid opportunity rather than the endless annual cycles that we've had to go through. So really delighted on this one that government's listened and are putting out a 3-year opportunity. The Rough Sleeping Initiative grant that we've secured over the last 4 years funds things like our street outreach service for rough sleeping, our supported housing pathways, the work of the safe space in the city, and also our partnerships with some of the private rented sector landlords. So really vital as part of our homelessness and rough sleeping strategy that we continue to have this opportunity and bid for it. We have bid for just over 2.8 million to cover the next 3 years, and we should find out whether we're successful towards the end of April. One slight note of caution in talking to Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities has been they're signalling that there's the potential for the grant awards to be going down by as much as 25% in this new round. And so, you know, whilst we are optimistic and have certainly bid for everything that we feel that we need in the city, the realist in me tells me that we may not achieve all of the bids that we've requested this time. And if so, then we will have some difficult decisions to make in terms of how we scale our work around homelessness and rough sleeping. But we will wait and see. The second aspect of my report is regarding a refresh of the Derby Homes tenancy policy, and it's seeking board's approval to the draft that's appended to the report. And in terms of the tenancy policy, this comes from a review of the council's tenancy strategy, which concluded and was approved on the 9th of June last year. And the council's tenancy strategy effectively sets out the kind of tenancies that the local authority will grant and under what conditions they'll be granted, and sets out other things as well in terms of things like the use of affordable rents. And local housing registered providers have to take regard to the council's tenancy strategy in developing their own tenancy policy. So our tenancy policy, Derby Homes' tenancy policy, is doing two things in this refreshed document. Firstly, it's providing a space for us to be able to identify all of the different tenancies that we operate on behalf of the City Council. And I've listed those down in terms of flexible tenancies, non-secure tenancies, family intervention tenancies, contractual tenancies. So there are a number of different tenancies that we operate on the Derby City Council properties on their behalf. Of note is within that list, I guess, is the issue around flexible tenancies, which is something relatively new to the city. At the moment, within the council's tenancy strategy, flexible tenancies are limited to only those properties that have received grant in relation to homelessness work. But there is a consultation planned that will look to seek views on expanding that to use flexible tenancies for larger properties and also properties with significant adaptations in them. Within our tenancy policy, we are also describing the types of tenancies that Derby Homes Limited provides. and also the support available through Derby Homes to our tenants and obviously the council's tenants as well. And we list those out in some detail in the tenancy policy and talk about the support that we provide in terms of tenancy sustainment, intensive housing management, support to for people with complex needs, and our intensive intervention service. So we have a real staircase of support which we identify and list out within our tenancy policy. And finally, we've included some information on succession also within the tenancy policy. The refreshed tenancy policy was taken to the operational board on the 10th of March and discussed, and I think the recommendation there was that we take feedback from the operational board and seek a recommendation to the main board. There was, I think, quite a good discussion and feedback in terms of a change to 5.2 in the tenancy policy that was put forward, I think, by Lucy Kerr, which has now been incorporated. And I think subject to that amendment, the operational board were happy to suggest that the main board approve the refreshed tenancy policy. Happy to take any questions.
Mike, you're on mute.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Claire. I don't see any hands up. Given the fact that you've mentioned that the amendments have been made as suggested at the operational board, can I ask for formal approval of the revised policy? Yep. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. If we can move on then to the next item, which is Taryn, board member training and appraisal.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. This first report relates to board member appraisals for 2022. The report sets out the arrangements for board member appraisals, and the recommendation is to agree the arrangements as in the report. The reason for this recommendation is it helps us comply with the NHF Code 2020 and the requirements of our board member services agreement. We normally look at it alternatively. So one year we do all board members, and then on alternate years we do the chairs and the vice chairs. This year it is the turn of the chair and the vice chairs, and the proposal is to commence the appraisals in June and finish them by the end of June.
Okay, right. Thank you, Taryn. Ian, you indicating?
I was just going to say at 4.2, Chair, it says attached to Appendix 1 is a template, which I don't seem to have. Would it be okay if people wish to make comments to email Tarrant about that?
I'm sure that's fine. Yes, Ian. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Ian.
Mike, before we move on, it's coming up to 8 o'clock. Do we want to waive standing orders?
I'm sure we do. Yes. Thank you, Bob.
May I just, on top of what Ian's just said, something okay. I also noted that we didn't have that appendix. Can we get it up online so that the public who might want to look at it can have it as well, and we can then download it?
Yes, we can. Yes, yeah. We'll ensure that that's put on.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And again, Taryn, A8, recruitment and appointment to board members.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This report sets out proposal and seeks approval for the recruitment and reappointment of Derby Homes tenant and independent board members. The recommendation is that the board appoints an appointments committee and delegates authority to that panel to appoint or reappoint members of Derby Homes board. If successful at interview, it approves that Ian and Charlene can be reappointed for a further term of 3 years, and that would also that should also cover Ian going beyond the maximum term of 9 in the NHF code. The reason for the recommendation is to comply with Derby Homes covenant arrangements.
Okay.
So
I think we can agree that, Taryn, but we do need another board member to take part in the appointments panel. Myself and Bob are part of it. We need somebody who obviously can't be Charlene or Ian, but to take part in that. If there are any volunteers, and Lucy, you've got your hand up anyway.
Yeah, I'm not volunteering because the suggested date is before the elections, and I will be unfortunately busy. But I was just going to say, is there a bit of a remit for the panel? Is it going to be, for example, making sure that we've got some publicity so that people outside this group know that are encouraged to put themselves forward to explore the idea and that sort of thing, so as to have some publicity?
Yeah. Yeah,
yes.
I can reassure you on that, Lucy. Taryn and I have previously had a discussion of that. We've gone through the normal process of advertising this in the usual places to make sure that people are aware. We're not. It's always been our policy that we don't just rubber stamp an existing board member going through. It's always open for full competition.
And as you may recall, we put a flyer in the Derby Homes News as well, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes, we did as well.
I think it might also be mentioned on the message you get when you phone up Derby Homes too.
Yes,
so certainly it's there sometimes. So thank you for that reassurance. I'm pleased it's being included.
Okay. Do we have a volunteer?
We've got Jeanne volunteered, Mike.
Thank you, Jeanne. Okay, thank you very much. Then moving on to this then, item A9 is forward plan is just for noting, so unless there's any comments, we'll go on to there. And A10 disclosures under the Insurance Act, as again, there are no further disclosures. That brings us to the point, to the end of the open part of the meeting. Before we move on to part B, Josh, can we now terminate the YouTube thing and I'll say goodbye and thank you to all our viewers who've been watching us patiently through there, and consider the motion under B1